Hi, my name is Rich Stalls. We are here looking at the Unity3D SCORM Integration Kit. This is episode 3 in the tutorial series looking at the integration kit. Now, today we'll be exploring the SCORM data model just so you can see the kinds of data that you can put in and out of the system. So here we go. Today we are going to explore a couple of things about the SCORM data model. When you download and include the Unity3D SCORM Integration Kit plugin into your Unity3D project, you'll see there's a test application that comes with it. And I'll be showing you that, and I'll show it to you live in a learning management system called Blackboard Learn Ultra. And we'll use that to explore the kinds of things that can go in and out of the learning management system. So remember, this is a part of a whole tutorial series. This is in fact episode number 3, but please go check out episodes 1 and 2, getting started and the basics of the integration kit. And please comment below, let me know how you are using the integration kit, any questions, comments, and we'll get going from here. So I just wanted to quickly recap what a couple of things we talked about in the last session. We talked about how the SCORM JavaScript file that is a part of the WebGL SCORM template, when you export your project as a WebGL project, takes care of a lot of the communication calls in and out of the learning management system. But most importantly here, we're talking about the student record as the unit of communication. It's the part that captures who the student is and what they've done in that particular session with your application. And we'll be exploring today the data model that is included in that student record. And don't forget that the files that we were looking at, the SCORM manager CS file and the student record CS file, are the only two files that you really need to worry about when you're integrating your own code. And the test application here uses calls to the SCORM manager, which includes the student record, to communicate inward and outward from the learning management system. So let's look at the system now. I'm just going to jump across to my screen. In fact, we'll start here in the sample project that I've been using here. Now, when you install the SCORM integration kit, here you will see there's a scene called the test app. And so I'll load that up. Now it's a 2D app, so switch to the 2D view in the scene. I won't go into too much detail here, but later on we'll show you how you set up your own projects to communicate using the SCORM integration kit. But importantly, you have the SCORM manager and your own controller that speaks inward and outward to the SCORM manager. But in this one here, I've got a whole bunch of user interface elements that basically are my code that uses the SCORM manager to talk to the learning management system. And I won't go into too much detail here, but if you try run the project here, it should fail. Mostly because, we'll look at the error message console, is this one here. The very first function that gets called when we initialize our web app is it checks to see if there's a valid communication with the learning management system. And obviously that fails because we're here. So I guess we could take care of that with some compiler time directives, but I haven't done that in here because I just wanted to get it out and running. So no good there. What I've done is I've built it as a here we go. We'll go to the build settings. I've built it as a WebGL project, and it's used the SCORM template so that we've got all the right details there. And then later on, I've gone through the export the SCORM package to wrap it up into the files that are needed there. And then I've gone ahead and loaded it up into Blackboard Learn Ultra. So you can see here, let's just make that a little bit bigger so we can fill the screen a bit more. So this is Blackboard Learn Ultra. We'll go into one of my test courses here. And I've loaded in the test application here. We'll launch the Unity3D SCORM test application. What I'll do is just make it a bit bigger on the screen. Zoom out a bit so we can see everything there nicely. Okay, so as you can see here, we have a bunch, we've got a little debug log area that I've used here, and I've just left a couple of errors there so I could see the errors appearing in my log file. But here across the top is a whole bunch of buttons that explore the SCORM data model. So the first area is the learner data. So this uses a bunch of get value requests to the learning management system, and it gets the learner ID, which is my username. It gets the name and a bunch of preferences. Now, in this particular one, these ones don't actually get set by the learning management system, so these are the default values I've had. Now, what you can do here is there is the ability for, in the SCORM standard, to set learner comments. So there's a comment field, such as and a comment location, which probably is the screen you're looking on. So these ones here, especially this location, would be set programmatically. Not really, you wouldn't really get the learner to put the location in. But for this one, I've used this web app. This test app that comes with the integration kit is really designed so that you can test communication inward and outward with using all of the possible calls that are available in the SCORM manager to test what happens in the particular learning management system you're trying to deploy it in, and get a hold of any of the quirks that might be there. So when you click Add Learner Comment, you'll see here that it sets a whole bunch of calls here that that are logged from the SCORM manager.cs file in the code, and you can see that there. So that's the basics of what is around what can occur with the learner data. And if I turn that to 1, audio level 5, you can see every time I change it, it sends a set value call to the learning management system. So looking at the next tab here, SCORM Data, this is the data that comes across from the learning management system, and it's a combination of what might be set from the learning management system itself or what's set in the SCORM package. So these top bits really are the bits that gets the credit, entry, and mode gets set from the learning management system. And you can see this particular learning activity set as a non-credit activity. Now, I've noticed that some learning management systems don't really set this stuff terribly correct, and that's why this test app is probably quite useful. Entry mode, so this is where in the actual assessment the learning activity that should be displayed as the launch point, because this is the very first time, this is a brand new attempt. It's going to start at the start. The mode is set to browse, which is designed to let the code know that I'm actually just looking through it instead of taking it, which matches the no credit piece here, but we'll have to see. Sometimes the learning management system doesn't set these quite correctly, so you might want to play around with those. Now this one here, this next part here, the max time allowed, total time, and time to action, is actually set when you package the SCORM object itself. It's designed to allow time limits on the the activity itself, and I haven't set any of that here, but that's a possibility there. And when it's designed so that when you launch your web app, you read these and take appropriate action. And there's no comments being set from the learning management system itself. So the next piece, we're going to look at SCORE. So the SCORE is interesting. When you set the score, you don't just set one piece, which is the raw score or a scaled piece. You actually have to set 4 pieces: the minimum score, raw score, which is often 0, maximum score, which is the most points possible. So this one might be out of 100. Let's just make it out of 10 for simplicity's sake. Now, what is the raw score? It's the score that is between 0 and 10 in this case, and we're going to put it as a 8. Now, when the actual test app here, when I click off that, it actually processes it. And let's just put that as, actually let's put this as 100, see what happens. So you can see it's setting to 100, and you can see it's setting the scaled score there for me. I'll put it back down to 10. And you can see here down the bottom of the screen of the log, you can see it's set the scaled score to 0.8, and it's for some reason not just, it's just supposed to put that up here. Actually, it's probably because it's rounding. Let's go up to 100 and set the scaled score to 80. No, it's broken. Okay, so, and the progress measure is another part of the SCORE idea here, is how far through the learning activity I've progressed, and we can set it up to 70%, 80%, or I've completed it. So this little package here is designed to be set when you're setting a final score for the learning activity. You do have to have the minimum, you have to have the maximum raw possibility, you have to get what they actually scored, and you also have to set the scaled passing score, and the progress measure is recommended as well. And if they've completed it, set that as a 1. This whole package there is usually what the learning management system is looking for as a final score piece. So let's look at the objectives now. Now, objectives are ideally set here to reflect subparts of the learning activity that you want the learner to go through. So objective 1, let's give it an ID, and this one might be something like understand SCORM basics, and you can add the objective here. So when you have an objective, now this particular one here, the code, in order to make it, it's supposed to be a unique identifier in the whole system. So as you can see, I've set the code in the integration kit to use my surname, but I'd suggest you go change it to whatever makes sense. Maybe it's a company name or a project name there. It also sets the title I gave it. Now for each objective, so as we looked at back here at the score, we can do an overall final score. Now each objective can also do its own score, which makes sense. So 0 to 100, and I've scored 90 out of that. As you can see, it's processing some of that stuff there. I've completed it. Now success status for this particular objective, I've passed it. Lovely. And I have completed it. So this, when it gets stored to the learning management system, this basically lets the learning management system know that this student has completed this particular objective, which is a part of the overall score. Now, best practice is when using your code is to, by default, set these 2 as unknown. Don't leave them blank, because if the logic of your code fails to actually set one of these things, some learning management systems will reject that. So it's good to set these as unknown, because that's a valid flag for these 2 particular pieces. And then when the score gets set, is processed that as passed or failed, or when you've got a completion status, is to set one of these things here. So that's objective. So that's like a sub part that adds up to the overall score. Now, here's a separate side of things, interactions. Now, at the very basic level, it's useful to think these as responses to quiz questions as your initial idea. Now, they are designed to be centered around a quiz question model of understanding interactions, but I've seen and used myself, I've leveraged interactions not to talk about quizzes or quiz responses, but actually record significant interactions in the learning activity. I think I talked about it in the last tutorial session where I leveraged this to flag in a nursing simulator where we wanted to know whether or not the students washed their hands before they approached the patient and interacted with them. And if they washed their hands before interacting with the patient, we'd set a learner interaction for that. And if they interacted with the patient without washing their hands, we also set an interaction that would alert the tutor who could run the SCORM report in the learning management system and see how students were doing. And the idea was to allow students to practice this in their own time and give feedback to the tutor so that they could see how the class was progressing and do they need to recover some of the basic ground or not, depending on whether students were washing their hands or not. So that's what I leveraged the learner interactions for. So this one we might have question 1. We might want to write out the whole question or just a summary, which is like SCORM basics definition. Weighting may or may not have been processed in the learning management system, but let's say it's worth 10%. Yes, they got it correct. And what did they say? It is student response is what they chose. So maybe it was a multiple choice. So it was choice 1 was correct. Okay, let's add that interaction, and you can see it sets a timestamp, again a unique identifier. Here we go, the description, and this one here, just for the purposes of the test application, I didn't allow you to set what the interaction type was. It's just set it as other. Latency is always going to be 18.4 seconds, just so that you've got a data point that gets sent to the learning management system, and the response is what you type in. So these ones here, there's a whole bunch of types that you can select, and we talked about that a little bit in the last session, but you can see in the code itself it uses enumerated data types, so you don't have to remember what the strings that match those. You just choose the in an object-oriented fashion. And we'll get into the whole side of things later when we look into the code and how you might integrate your web app, your Unity3D project with SCORM. So you can see that sent that to the learning management system. So this is where the last one here is exit. So exit scenarios are really interesting because this is where the SCORM standard can be a bit fuzzily interpreted by different learning management systems, and sometimes it doesn't quite make sense of why final scores are appearing through to the grade center or not, depending on how you do this. So although all the way through we've been setting the score and objectives and interactions, it doesn't actually appear as a final session, so to speak, in the student record until you do a valid exit. So there's a couple of ways you could exit. You can exit with setting a location and suspending it. And implicit to setting a location is exiting with the status of exit suspend. Setting the location here will or should exit. So if I put something like I got to slide 18 and I click that there, it should store a suspend call to the learning management system saying this is where I got up to. So the idea is that's used for if I relaunch the learning activity, it will go, oh, okay, you basically pushed pause at slide 18. I should reconnect you with all the data so far at slide 18 so you could continue on. So we won't do that in this one here. I've had mixed results with different learning management systems using this one here. The one that works a lot better is a full exit status. So nothing, as I was saying before, none of the score objectives or interactions are going to appear in the learning management system unless you call a valid exit set of calls. Now, here the completion threshold I was talking about before, that was set here in the SCORM data as well, that gets set at the beginning of the runtime. In this particular one, I didn't set anything. So there's two bits that you really should be looking at. Success status, did I pass it or did I fail? Again, best practice, set it as unknown when you initialize your web application so that if the logic of your code somehow fails to set this one correctly, at least a valid value is going to be sent to the learning management system to be processed. So in this one particular one, I'm going to say I passed the learning activity. Completion status. So this is really designed to be around the score. Did I pass or fail based on the score? Completion is, did I go through the entirety of the learning activity? Did I don't know as a default, did I not even interact with it at all? Did I get partway through and finish, or did I get through the entire activity of the learning activity? So when I click exit SCORM, what's going to happen is it's going to call two functions. One's going to be a commit and one's going to be a terminate. Commit basically stores all of the interactions as a final piece to the student record in the learning management system, and then terminate says, okay, quit. So we'll click that, and commit and terminate should have gone through. So the idea is, if I go to one of my students, I should be able to see some of the individual attempts. So let's have a look at this first attempt here and get a bit of an idea of what was going on. And you can see here overall time limit, what my how much I completed through the attempt, what my status was. Here's the time spent. This is of course average for all the students. And here we go, interactions, how I've set some of those things there. So I hope that gives you a bit of a feel what's possible to hook in to the learning management system from your own code. Now, next time we'll be looking a lot deeper into the code and how to actually structure the Unity3D project so that your code can talk correctly with the integration kit, and what some of the calls that it might look like. And we'll use the test application as a initial test bed for that. All right, I'll see you next time.